Good afternoon. This little mini lecture is on mammal ID. The quiz I have is going to be looking at the outsides of the mammal, and the handout describes the outsides of the mammal, but I'm going to be, for this slideshow, looking at the bone structure of the skulls because it helps ID them a little bit easier. What is a mammal? You guys probably already know this, but mammals specifically have two things: hair and milk. Mammal is from the mammary glands. All mammals secrete and feed their young some kind of milk. Most mammals also have live birth, but there are a couple that don't. There are lots of orders of mammals, but the local ones I'm going to go through right now. Insectivores, we have shrews and moles. These guys, a lot of people mistake for rodents, but they don't have the same teeth as rodents. Shrews and moles both have sharp, pointy teeth used for chewing apart tiny little insects and invertebrates. Moles eat earthworms as well as insects, common shrews, any little invertebrate they can find. Most of these critters also have really long, narrow skulls, whereas most rodents' skulls tend to be a little bit rounder. Not that round, but rounder than invertebrate insectivore skulls. Chiroptera, realistically, is also an insectivore, but they're slightly different. Bat skulls come in so much variety, but you should be able to ID a bat because they're bats. They're flying. They're the only mammals that fly. So they have the same sharp, pointy teeth that the insect-eating insectivora, moles and shrews, but instead they're chiroptera. So like chiro is bony wing, ptera is wing. Carnivore, we're going to talk about later, but carna is flesh and vora is to eat or devour, or devour. So these are the flesh devourers or the meat eaters. I've got a whole slide on them. Rodents, so rodent is gnawing. All rodents have these large, ever-growing teeth. A lot of them are colored because it's two different types of material, enamel and dentine, so the one wears away faster, so you get a nice sharp edge. They all have this gap, so they've got the gnawing front teeth, and then they have chewing molars at the back. Most of them have big zygomatic arches, so it's allowing that muscle formation for that gnawing motion. Right, so this is a beaver up top, and down here we have a mouse. But you can see like much rounder heads, and like still not round, but much rounder than those shrews and mole skulls. This brings us to rabbits. So this is really important about rabbits. They're not rodents. They have 4 teeth. Can you guys see how those are divided? They also have sort of honeycomb structure in their skulls, which is kind of cool. But because they have similar eating habits, they also have the 2 front and then a gap and then the eating teeth. They're not gnawing and tearing, so they don't have to have those sharp gnawing and tearing teeth in between. And then last we have Artiodactyla. This is deer and moose. They again have a gap and then molars. Their molars are actually shaped sort of like this. They're much sharper. Ours are kind of like this. We're not expected to break apart vegetable matter. The food that we're eating is fruit that's easy to chew or meat. These sharp pieces like this that are also made with layers of dentine and enamel to keep them sharp is for breaking open the difficult plant cells so they can get better digestion of that plant material. Unlike horses, there are no top teeth. just bottom teeth. So you'll see on a twig that's been deer browsed sort of a jagged cut where it's been cut from one side and torn off from the other because there's no top teeth. So I want you to be able to ID those critters to their orders, but with carnivores, I want you to be able to go down to the family. So carnivore is the order, and then all of these are families. You can tell because they end in AE. Families almost always end in AE. I'm going to talk about Mustelidae first. These are the weasels. These are both fisher skulls. So fishers are quite vicious. They do a lot of biting and a lot of chomping and tearing. So you can see here they've got a big zygomatic arch from their biting power, just like the beavers did for the same reason. They also, some of them have a very large sagittal crest. And this is for the ripping and tearing muscles. So this one is smaller than this one. Often you see dominant males will have a larger sagittal crest because there's more tearing involved. Otters have no sagittal crest because they're exclusively fish eating. So they don't need to have that same tearing that weasels that are eating often animals bigger than them. They have to tear the flesh from that animal. Ursidae is our bear. This is a black bear skull. It's kind of smoother than a dog skull. So dogs will come down like this and have a snout, and cats are sort of shorter. You see some change in dentition here, where you have the carnivore incisor, but you have some good molars back there. A little bit of a sagittal crest, but not a huge one, not a very big zygomatic arch. Black bears aren't having to work very hard for their food in terms of gnawing. They're more searching hard. Here's our dogs and our cats, Canidae and Felidae. So again, you can see the carnivores that are gnawing at their food have that sagittal crest for tearing, and the teeth are much sharper for tearing. And then I was showing you the bear has a smoother profile, the dogs have a more defined nose, and cats are quite round on the front. But again, also sharp teeth everywhere, no chewing teeth. I also find most of the cats have larger eye sockets. Sight is more important. Both of them pretty big zygomatic arches for biting power. This is a coyote and a lynx skull, by the way. Procyonidae is our raccoons. Cyan is dog, and pro, so it's like dog-like, is where that name is coming from. They have a bit of a sagittal crest, but not a ton. They have a bit of zygomatic arch, but not a ton. Basically, I figure out raccoon by size. It looks like a little bear skull to me, because like a dog skull would come down a little bit more, and a cat skull would be rounder. So when I find them, I think, oh, it's like a little baby bear with the molars that aren't quite as sharp. Like bears, raccoons are omnivores, eating whatever they can get their hands on.